And people like this goalie issue is just everywhere. It's on social media. It's on the networks. I'm terrified, man. I'm absolutely terrified because it's not even as if, okay, the goaltending has been average. You can't make a deep run with average goaltending. No, the goaltending has been absolutely terrible. Terrible. And I don't see goaltending like I see other positions. The big topic of the Leafs going to the playoffs was always their defense. And track meets, you can't do that in the playoffs. It is possible to win in a track meet. Not every game, but when you're scoring at will, these high scoring, free flowing games, game in, game out, you can win. You can win games. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to win the Stanley Cup, but you can win games. You can beat good teams. The way this goaltending is playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, you can't win games. You can't. At least in the playoffs anyway. You can't allow 5 goals on under 30 shots and expect to win, get out of the first round. So I'm terrified, man. I'm absolutely terrified because it's a slap right in the face. It's a direct point. Typically with these things, there are debates. Oh, the Leafs need this, or they should add this, or this guy's got to go. But then there's another side saying, yeah, but there's no yeah, but with this. There is no yeah, but with this. The only discussion to be had is what do they do? What do they do? They got 30 games to figure this out or acquire someone. And when it started teetering, I would have thought you were crazy if you pointed out to the possibility of the Leafs maybe trading for a goalie. But it's going to get to a point, and we have 3 weeks before the deadline. If this keeps going, Dubas may have to do something. It's impossible because he can look at it and be like, nothing. I'll put it this way. Nothing else matters. If the team was perfect, absolutely perfect, but getting this goaltending, no, doesn't matter. They're going to lose.
It doesn't matter how well you play. When your goalies are allowing 3, 4, 5 goals a night, you're not going to win it, especially in the playoffs. And looking at Petr Mrazek's numbers, Lepore, you mentioned it. He has played 14 games this season, and he has allowed 3 or more goals in 9 of the 14 games.
That's 14 starts?
Not 14 starts. I believe it's 12 starts.
Okay.
But yeah, he's allowed 3 or more in 14 games this season.
Awesome.
That's just unacceptable. He's having one of the worst seasons of his career. Jack Campbell, the last 3 months, going back to December 1st, I should say. I've been tracking his numbers. I already brought it up. .893 save percentage and a 3.35 goals against average over his last 20 games since December the 1st. This team isn't going to win shit in the playoffs if they're getting goaltending like this. You've brought this up on the podcast recently, Lepore. You have Andrei Vasilevskiy. Now, I know Florida doesn't have the greatest goaltending, but they do have Sergei Bobrovsky, who's a 2-time Vezina winner, and he's kind of regained his form this season compared to the last couple of seasons. Do you trust Campbell or Mrazek over Vasilevskiy or Bobrovsky in a playoff series, or even the goaltending that Boston's getting from Jeremy Swayman now that Tuukka Rask is retired? Swayman's been excellent. They have Linus Ullmark as well. I would take those 2 goalies any day over Campbell.
We take anyone
Mrazek
right now. We take any. There's no goalie in the East on any team that's going to make the playoffs that we wouldn't take right now. It's ridiculous.
That's a fair point. It really is. And I look back at the Austin Matthews era. This is the worst goaltending they have gotten in the Matthews. Let's call it the Matthews, Marner, and Nylander era since all those rookies came in together. And I know Freddie Anderson was here for the majority of that time. The goaltending was never this bad. Never. As much as everyone hated on Freddie Anderson, as many soft goals as he let in the playoffs in big games against Boston and Columbus, and go down the list, the goaltending has never been as awful as we are seeing it right now. And I don't know how they get out of it, because going into the season, I don't think Kyle Dubas thought for a split second that he was going to have to address this goaltending situation at the trade deadline. But it has now gotten to the point where he's looking at this team and saying, holy shit, we are a top 5 to 6 team in the league based on record, based on literally every metric except goaltending. He's like, do I really have to go out and acquire a goaltender right now? Do I really need to acquire a goaltender after I just paid Petr Mrazek, which is looking like an awful contract, 3 years, $3.8 million a season. Jack Campbell, who's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, who looked like he was going to be the number one after having an incredible year last year, coming flying out of the gates this season, looking like a top Vezina candidate. And now it's all come crashing down. It really has.
He's cost himself a lot of money, Campbell. I mean, I don't even know what that negotiation is like now or as it stands now. But if we could all announce what we really wanted from this, it would be Campbell takes the reins. Campbell gets comfortable again. He gets confident again. And I'm not saying we have to get to a point where he was at the point that he was at earlier in the season, because I mean, those numbers were bananas and they weren't at all sustainable. But if he can gain his, we want him to get his confidence back, get to at least a decently high level. What's the meter of like fear that you have with that being a possibility? Because again, I'm terrified. We don't know these guys personally, but Campbell seems like an emotional guy. This has been a roller coaster for him. How well he was playing, how much people were pumping his tires, talk of a Vezina trophy, talk of this big contract. And now it's all come crashing down hard. So for me anyway, like what I've assumed, and people comment down below, or Bruno, what's your opinion? I think for him anyway, it's between the ears. He's just not confident in the net. His body language sucks. When that goal beat him against Detroit off the left wing, that's a horrible goal. Like that's not an NHL goal by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, some of the goals he was letting in that Detroit game, like, you know, people love to shit on the Leafs defense and say there's all these defensive breakdowns and odd man rushes. No, going back to that Detroit game, pucks were being thrown on net from anywhere and going in. It was abysmal to watch.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think? Like, can he snap out of this? Do you expect him to snap out of this?
Well, I'm with you. I'm extremely concerned because I think a lot of it is mental at this point with Jack Campbell. And again, I don't know Jack Campbell personally. I'm judging this based on, you know, the fact that he wears his heart on his sleeve, that he's the first one to put the blame on himself when he's talking to the media, specifically in post-game press conferences when he's coming off a rough game. He throws all the blame on himself. He has, you know, huge expectations for himself, but at the same time, he's a little bit too hard on himself. I mean, he blames himself for everything. Like, can you imagine how he's feeling right now? He thinks that he is the main reason that this team isn't, you know, better than it is. And again, the team is still really good. They're comfortably in a playoff spot. They're obviously going to coast into the playoffs, barring an absolute 18-wheeler falling off the cliff. But I think Jack Campbell is sitting there thinking that he's the guy holding this team back, that he's the anchor, so to speak. And that if he were to return to the form that we saw at the beginning of the season, or even going back to last season, that this team would probably be in the running for the President's Trophy. And what's funny is that they're still in the running for the President's Trophy. I don't think they're going to finish with the top record in the regular season, but you can imagine if this team was getting average to slightly above average goaltending, specifically at 5-on-5. I mean, imagine where this team would be right now. They probably would be the best team in the NHL. And I looked at a quote today from Sheldon Keefe.
Oh no.
And they showed this on the Sabres Leafs broadcast. He was talking about why Mrazek got back-to-back starts. And Keefe said he's earned it. It's no secret Jack has stumbled as of late. And we have been talking about getting Petr more time at net. We think with the timing, everything just really made sense. And even going back to the last game against Washington, I believe Keefe said that Jack just needed to get his head right.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Right. And then I even saw a quote from Campbell where he said that he went on a walk like with his teammates and he was getting fresh air and he had to get his mind off things.
Fuck me.
So it's like you said, man, it just seems like a guy who it's a very tough situation right now because I think a lot of it is between the ears. And again, it's not like we're, psychologists or anything like that. And we can, figure out what's going on in this guy's head. But I mean, just based on the way that he conducts himself in the public, I would imagine, and I think most people feel the same way, that this dude has completely lost his confidence. And there isn't a lot of time to get that confidence back, man. These playoffs are going to be here in the blink of an eye. There's less than 30 games to go. And if you cannot get your shit together as a team and as a goaltending tandem, then I don't see how this team has any chance in a 7-game playoff series when their goalies are putting up an .895 save percentage.
You know what's so hilarious? Again, Toronto Maple Leafs, man. Imagine someone had not watched our podcast or the Leafs all season and then listen to this conversation we're having. But then you pointed out this team's on pace for between 110 and 115 points. How is that possible? How is that possible? We are having the best season in the history of the franchise, and we're all fucking terrified because our goalies cannot make a save. How?
That's crazy.
This has to be like, I'd love to see the numbers of, let's say we do acquire a goalie or go after a goalie. In the history of the league, in the history of the trade deadline, has a team had a pace of 110 plus points and been looking for a goalie? You think, no, that was short up, but no, Toronto Maple Leafs. That's why we have a podcast, and it's so easy to fill it all the time, but unbelievable. Just Jack, figure it out, man. Figure it out. I hate to say this stuff, but this is why the sports psychologist gets paid, man. A lot of money. And MLSE's got deep pockets. That's where you need to put your pockets right now, because the last thing this fan base needs and this organization needs is a first round exit because of something so simply black and white as a goaltending issue, a serious and obvious goaltending issue. Please, figure this out. Come on.
You nailed it, man. The Leafs right now, Lepore, they are on pace for 112 points.
That's after the loss tonight.
Yeah, despite the loss tonight, still on pace for 112 points. They are on pace to shatter the franchise record by 7 points, which was set in 2018 at 105 points. And they're getting the worst goaltending of this entire Matthews and Marner era. And
there's goaltending in the league.
It's insane. It's crazy to think where this team would be right now with average to slightly above average goaltending. But you said it, man. They got to figure it out, specifically Jack Campbell, because no one's coming in to save this team. I don't think, at least in net. I don't see Kyle Dubas going out. And, Marc-Andre Fleury's name has been floated around.
Come on, give me a break.
I don't think they're going to unload assets and try to bring in a Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Dubas has completely given up on the goaltending at this point and takes a big swing, but I think that they're going to look to improve the team in other ways.